results, the repercussions of this new policy adopted by Mr. Trump, we saw the decline of the stock market and also the devaluation of the US dollars. Is it normal, in your opinion?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be with you and your guests, and I appreciate that. I would just say absolutely, this was expected. I think President Trump is only doing what is referred to as a reciprocal tariff on many countries around the world who President Trump believes has been taking advantage of America and the consumers in America for, well, decades. So he believes this is the right way and the right path forward to make it an even playing field. In the end, he believes, President Trump believes, that this will encourage and provide the incentive for U.S. manufacturers, or I should say just manufacturers in general, to come back into U.S., set up their operations, and hire American citizens as employees. So he believes this is the right strategy, the right policies for long-term success here in America, despite the short-term challenges that the stock market might create. But again, short-term difficulties for long-term gain, I think, is what President Trump is looking to do.
Dr. O'Donnell, what do you think about that? Who will benefit and who will not?
Well, thanks for having me again. Who will benefit? Well, that's a good question. Mr. Trump is saying he's going to get $6 or $7 trillion. He can cut taxes and instead collect money in this way in the United States. But look, if our friend here from the United States who just spoke, the expert, if he goes out and he wants to buy a car from Japan, from Europe or something, he's going to pay 25% more. Or, import some bourbon, he's going to pay a whole lot more. He's going to pay for it. The American citizens are going to pay these tariffs. So, okay, I don't see how where's the money coming from? It's not coming from abroad. So in the 1980s, I remember when Reagan was president, the Japanese were importing autos and Mr. Reagan thought this was not fair. And he gave the American auto industry protection. He put some kind of tariffs. And he said 5 years. And they promised in these 5 years, we're going to focus on reindustrializing and modernizing, bringing ourselves up to date. And we're not going to take advantage of it by raising prices domestically. 5 years later, when the Senate looked at this, they had done exactly that. During that 5 years, they had raised prices and they hadn't reindustrialized. They hadn't caught up with new robots and so forth, and they had to take it off. It sounds like a nice plan, but these things have been tried before. And I'll tell you, I taught a course for many years on technological change in the United States, Europe, and so forth, the third industrial revolution. And the fact of the matter is, the jobs that went down when American manufacturing seems to have gone down, some went abroad for a period of time, but it was mainly that you had robots and automation introduced. I worked in the auto industry, and there were factories that had 10,000 auto workers, okay, at Chrysler in particular, I'm thinking of particular plants, that went down to a couple thousand, but they could still turn out just as many or even more cars. So I think he's believing in certain tropes, and he's not focusing this on what was supposedly the main enemy of the United States, who does take advantage with heavy state subsidies, controls 1/3 of the world's manufacturing, China. Instead of focusing on a country that is causing trouble, he's focusing on the allies. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's paranoid. I don't know exactly. I think, anyway, enough points.
Maybe Mr. Arlett can tell us, why is Mr. Trump focusing on the allies and not China, for instance? Why not?
Well, I think it's a great question, but at the end of the day, what allies, quote-unquote allies, gouge the American consumer? And I say that with confidence because, look, this is a reciprocal tariff, meaning that those countries, those allies that have high tariffs on their imports into this country, into America, well, have been taking advantage of the American consumer. And I think that's exactly what the story is. Why would allies gouge and take advantage of the American consumer if they were actual allies. So at the end of the day, this has nothing to do with China or allies or otherwise. It's all about the tariffs that are already imposed on the unfair tariffs that are already imposed on the American consumer. President Trump is reciprocating those exact same tariffs to that particular country. So it's just a matter about, look, if you got a tariff here from another country that's coming into to the U.S., all we're doing is increasing our tariffs to match that very country who has been imposing and perhaps taking advantage of the American people. And at the end of the game, it's all about getting the attention of that particular country to either reduce or remove those tariffs. And again, President Trump is a game. He's a deal maker. He understands business. He understands how to make deals. This is all part of a strategy, I believe, to even the playing field, lower those tariffs, bring back American manufacturing and investments into this country, into America, which is exactly what President Trump is doing. So again, I would question an ally, if they are a true ally, gouging the American people with their own tariffs, whereas we as consumers are paying for. So this is just, look, this is a continuation of President Trump making America first and pro-America. He's just evening, if you would, even the playing field. And I applaud and recommend and encourage this very action because it's all about pro-American and helping the American worker to provide more industry, a bigger grower economy, and at the end of the day, more wages for the American workers as the trillions of dollars are reinvested back into America, which in turn helps the American worker.
Well,
Dr. O'Donnell, so reciprocity, deal making, and even playing field. Dr. O'Donnell,
I used
question to you.
yes.
Maybe focusing also on what Mr. Macron said, all options are open. So what do you think about all this, Dr. O'Donnell? Is the European position united, and what can we expect at the European level?
Well, Europe had a lot of illusions. Some people in Europe here had a lot of illusions about Russia before 2022, before the big invasion. And their illusions were dashed. They thought they could do business with Russia and they could trust them at least on energy. That didn't work out. People thought, Donald Trump will be fairly reasonable. There's no way in the world that the European Union, if you look at the actual data published by any international organization, World Bank, whatever, if you include services, it's about balance. There is no imbalance. Now, what he did, we're trying to figure out what he did. So I looked at Fox News, supposedly pro-Trump, okay? And they were in a quandary, and they seemed to have figured out that what he did is he took the trade imbalance, only looking at produced goods, not looking at services. The United States is leading the world with these service companies, with IT, Microsoft, so forth, right? Amazon. He ignored that. And he found an imbalance and then divided it by the exports. It's just some crazy made up formula. Said that's 39%, divided by 2 and put a 20% tariff. If anybody's gouging anybody, it's Mr. Trump. He's trying anyway. So it just doesn't make any sense. The European Union was not gouging the United States on tariffs. They have something like France, Germany. You might have 1 or 2% tariffs on things.
Dr. O'Donnell. So what can we expect from the EU?
Yes. Well, fair is fair. Fair is fair. As Mr. Macron says, and now as the new German Chancellor is saying, we didn't want, and Mrs. van der Leyen said today, the President of the European Union, suddenly your longest, oldest ally has turned on you. So fair is fair. They have to defend themselves, and they'll put tariffs in retaliation. And they'll negotiate on anything he wants to negotiate on. The thing is so illogical, and it's so made up, that maybe he's got something else he really wants and he's just trying to get their attention and they're waiting to see what that is. But the European Union will retaliate and, they have to work very hard on reindustrializing here. They have serious problems and they know they do. And this is just spurring them to deal with those problems.
Thank you very much, Dr. O'Donnell and and thank you very much, Mr. Arlet.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Take care and see you again. Thank you very much.
Good night.